perspective of angle x, what do we have?
30.
I have my opposite and my
Hypotenuse.
hypotenuse. What trig ratio is that?
Sine.
Sine, right? Sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, do I know theta?
No.
No. So instead of theta, it's just going to be sine of x. Do I know my opposite?
Yes.
What is that?
18 over 30.
And my hypotenuse is 30. Okay? If I'm looking for that, is it in there, sweetie?
What day was that? Tuesday?
All right. If I'm looking for, I think, what does it say? Yeah. All right. If I'm looking for this, remember inverse. How do we show that something was an inverse? We use what? The -1. The exponent, the -1. It's the same thing on here. So for x equals sine inverse of 18 divided by 30. And you just have to put that in the calculator. So I open my calculator. I'm going to go to trig. And remember how I said we were going to get to these on the bottom? We are there. And I put in 18 divided by 30.
I got 36.8699. I got 36.
All right, what did it tell me to round to on the paper?
10.
Nearest 10.
Nearest 10.
36.7.
36.9. Because the 6 rounds to 8. So 36.9.
She said so I said the same thing.
I got 30 seconds out.
36.9 degrees.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is really, really, really important.
All right. So now on this one. So our angle is x. From this angle, what information is provided to us? What is that?
Don't tell me 10. I mean 10. 10.
So tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. Well, do we know our theta?
No.
So tan of x equals what?
8 over 7.
If I'm looking for the angle, I use what?
You gotta use the negative point.
Which is called
Inverse.
inverse. Good job. And all I have to do is do what?
Plug it into the calculator.
Plug it in. So I'm going to go trig tan inverse of,
8.8.
and I get,
48.8
so it's approximately 48.8 degrees.
degrees. Question.
See.
I didn't get what you said the first part, but how do you know you're supposed to switch the theta to the x?
Because I know that what I'm looking for, and this is called angle x, so I just switched the name. Theta means unknown angle.
Yes, but I didn't mean it like that, but like how you know it's -1 instead of like the first tangent instead of the opposite tangent.
Because you use inverse when you're solving for an angle.
And
It's a regular tan if I'm solving for a side. It's inverse when I'm solving for a angle. I use regular tan when I'm solving for a side. I use inverse of tangent or inverse of any trig identity when I'm solving for the angle. This is used when you're looking for an angle. Okay? Inverse is used when I need an angle.
So when the question that it's asking, not like this, but like it's a U sign, that's what it's asking for, right? You find a measure of x, that's right?
Here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it says use sine, cosine, and tangent in each right triangle to solve the measure of angle x.
Okay.
See how it says angle x, not side. It says angle x.
All right, I got you.
All right. So now I'm starting from this angle. So if from the perspective of that angle, what sides do I have?
Adjacent over
Adjacent and hypotenuse, which is what?
cosine.
So cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, our theta is x. And what's our adjacent?
5 over 11.
5 over 11. So therefore, x has to be inverse of cosine which is approximately,
24.4.
okay, so trig inverse 5 divided by 7, and wait, is it 5 or 7? Low C intel.
Since it's 62 points.
I got 63.
Is it 11 over 7?
No.
5 over 11.
I knew that.
No, you didn't.
I
got 62.
No, does it count as
63.
There you go. So 63.0.
You don't gotta ruin
So do we see how using the inverse of each one of these would work? Okay, I would use the inverse of sine if I'm given the opposite in the hypotenuse legs, right? I would use the inverse of tan if I'm given the opposite in the adjacent legs. I'll use the inverse of cosine if I'm given the adjacent in the hypotenuse, right? All right. Now, if I now know two angles of these triangles, how would I solve for the third angle?
By putting it as X.
I do what?
You add them and subtract them.
I add and subtract from 180, right? What am I going to add and subtract from 180?
You're going to add the
90 and whatever we got.
There you go. This means 90, so I'm going to add.
You want it.
Alright.
Y'all chill, bro. That should give me 2 candies right there.
It doesn't. All right, so if I'm looking for this angle, and I know that this means 90, and I know that this angle is approximately 36.9, what would I do to solve for this missing angle?
Subtract 180.
Add those and subtract from 180.
Okay, I would add those two up and subtract from, or just put 180 minus 90 minus 36.9 in the calculator, right? And that would give me this unknown angle. So 180 minus 90, I'm
36. I think it's 53.9 equals 53.1.
okay, so it would be 53.1. I just grabbed it. So this is the exact value. This is the value because I used the exact number. So this would give you my exact value. All right. The other option you have, you either can add them all up or come to this angle, and from the perspective of this angle, I have my adjacent and my hypotenuse. So what would that be? Adjacent and hypotenuse.
Opposite.
Adjacent and hypotenuse. From this angle, what would that be? It would be my cosine. So I could also do the cosine inverse of
18 over 30.
18 over 30. And I'm going to get the same answer. Okay? So you have two ways of going about getting your other angle. If you had to complete the whole triangle and find out all the information possible about the triangle, you have two ways of going by and doing it. You can use the triangle property of all, the sum of interior angles is 180, or you can use your trig identity, which is the inverse of cosine. But notice how they give me the same answer, so it doesn't matter which way I go.
Wait, so it was cosine of that angle? Right.
Remember, the sine of one angle is the cosine of the other. Remember we talked about in the beginning? The sine of one angle is the cosine of the other angle.
Oh, okay.
Cool? Question. All right, we're going to summarize everything we've done. So, this is the kind of problem where it says solve for everything that is missing. And then we're going to make it a little harder. We're also going to solve for area.
They also say conflict in near 100.
Okay? It says the sides are going to be rounded to the nearest hundredth, and the degrees are going to be rounded to the nearest 10. Okay? So let's start with n. How will I go by solving for side n?
You know the opposite over adjacent. Hypotenuse.
It will be opposite over hypotenuse. So what would this be?
Sine.
Sine. So the sine of
Theta.
23, we're going to just go straight to it because we don't need, do we still need to substitute things in at this point? Or should we maybe just look and say sine of 23 is n over 126. My variable's in the,
Numerator, so you're gonna multiply.
so I'm going to multiply. So 126 times the sine of 23 degrees is, I don't know, but I have a calculator that'll tell me. So I go here, I'm going to put in 126 times the sine of 23, and I get what?
49.2.
49.2
Just you.
degrees. 49.2 what? Because it's a side. I'm sorry.
49.23.
49.23. So N is 49.23 unit. How do we feel? Good? Silence is good? All right. R. What's the relationship here now?
Opposite of
Adjacent.
Jason over.
Adjacent and hypotenuse. Adjacent means next to. We're solving for R. R is next to the angle. Okay? So this is my, if I'm at this angle, this would be adjacent to me. It's next to me. It's not across from me. It's next to me. So if I have adjacent and I have a hypotenuse, what is that?
Cosine.
Cosine.
Cosine of R.
My variable is in the numerator.
So you're gonna divide.
Numerator, I'm going multiply. M and N go together. Think about it alphabetically. Okay?
126 straight. Cosine 23.
Okay? So 126
116.
cosine of 23, rounding to the nearest hundred.
Oh, then 115.98.
So this forward, there you go. The forward makes the 8 stay up.
15.9.
98. Let's get it on.
I didn't mean to write the degree symbol. I meant to write unit. Okay? Almost done. What do we have left? Big R. Angle R. So how many ways can we solve for angle R?
You already know your 90 and your 23. So just add and subtract from one of your plug.
Exactly. I either can use the angle sum theorem that all the angles have to add up to what? 180. Or I can use what?
It's 67.
Cosine.
I can use any of those other rules, right?
67.
I can use my trig identity, I can use anything. But the easiest way to go about finding angle R is just to do 180 minus 90 minus 23. And what do I get?
67.
67 degrees. Okay, remember we're going to bump it up a notch. How would I find the area of this?
You add N, R, and 1.
Area equals whatever triangle.
One
So I had
times base times height.
Base times height divided by 2. Well, what's my base and what's my height? Well, my base and my height are N and R. Is that correct? Okay. For a triangle, in order to call something the base and something the height, it's the point where they are perpendicular. The two sides that are perpendicular to one another are your base and your height. What I noticed is that a lot of you guys kept trying to use your hypotenuse. I don't know what, but you kept trying to use your hypotenuse to solve these problems. All right, so I'm going to be lazy, and I'm just going to grab it from the computer. So the computer told me in the calculator. So time
I got
divided by.
4.
Did I have to pick up my pencil? Okay. So to do this, to just grab on the calculator, you just arrow up to what you want and hit enter. Okay. So I needed my N and I needed my R. Isn't this N equals? And isn't this R equals? And the area is base. I'm sorry. And we said that the formula would be N times R divided by 2. So all I did in the calculator is I took what N was, times it by R, and I divided it by 2. And I got the area of my right triangle, which is 2,855 and 6/100 units squared. If you do not label your units on your quiz tomorrow, you will lose points. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. 2,855
Square.
How do we feel?
Confident.
Confident, that's good.
It's good when you know what I'm saying, practice on music mode.
We have only 2 more to go. That's all I got left for you. Then you're on your own. All right, 14. What do we need to solve for?
X,
So I need to solve for the side x. So looking at this angle, what is the relationship between this angle and x?
it's gonna be,
That's,
It's the hypotenuse, right?
and
would it be cosine?
that
And
was
adjacent.
adjacent.
So I have my adjacent and my hypotenuse, which is what?
Adjacent of a hypotenuse, cosine.
Cosine. So cosine of 38 degrees equals 11.9 over x. Where is my variable?
On the bottom, so you divide.
In the denominator. Denominator means I'm going to
Divide.
divide. So I have 11.9 divided by the cosine of 38. So I go to the calculator and I'm going to put in 11.9 divided by the cosine of 38, and I get,
30 degrees, right?
38 degrees? Yeah.
So is it just 15.1?
I got a 9, hold on.
Even though it's near 100?
So 15 and 10 hundredths.
It'll be 15.2.
It said near its hundredths.
15 point.
That's one side down. Okay? What else could I do? What else do I need to do?
Wow.
Why? I've heard y'all give me all these ways of solving. What's another way to solve besides trig? Which one? I heard it. Pythagorean Theorem, right? Pythagorean Theorem, or you can do what we're doing. So I want you guys to solve for y. So go ahead. Okay? I'm going to do both. I'm going to do tan and I'm going to do Pythagorean Theorem. So if I was to do tan, the reason why I'm doing tan is because I have my adjacent side and this would be my opposite side. So the tan of 38 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. My variable's in the numerator, so this leads to multiplication. So this would be 11.9 times the tan of 38. So I go to the calculator. I put in 11.9 times the tan of 38, and I get 9.3. Okay? If I was to do Pythagorean Theorem, that means I would take my hypotenuse and square it minus 11.9 squared, and I would get what? Same thing.
Something
I
wrong.
got,
Yeah, because I got 19.
I got 19.23.
I got
I got 9, but I didn't get 9.
I got that.
Can I say what I did on Pythagoras?
All right. So let's.
What?
What would I do to solve for z?
180 minus 30 minus 90. I got 52.
There we go. So angle z equals 180 minus 90 minus 38, and I'm going to get 52 degrees. All right.
You want to find the area?
So bump it up a notch and find the area. This time you're going to do it by yourself. Find the area. Remember, you need to know the point where only use the sides that are perpendicular to one another.
and your base is gonna be 11.9. 11.9 times 9.30. Divided by 0.30.
Yeah,
I own it, boy. I got enough sleep last night.
Real talk. I'm tired of it.
You're doing it for one.
All right. So what do we do? What was my base and what was my height?
Your height was 11.9, and your base was 9.30.
There you go. Remember, it's the two lines that are perpendicular to one another. Okay? So I'm going to go to my handy dandy calculator, and I'm going to do 111.9 times, going to be lazy and go grab it, and then divided by, and I get 55 and 3/10. Units what?
Square.
Beautiful. Yay! How do we feel about tomorrow's quiz?
So we only
It's only 3 questions.
It's only 3 questions.
Like that.
3 questions.
wait, I mean they're graded harder though. Miss Ware, we just
Alright, what do you notice about 15? I do not have what?
Hypotenuse.
I don't have my inverse and I don't have any degrees besides my 90, right? The only angle I know is my 90. So what does this tell me I'm going to use? What do we use to solve for angles? Inverse, good job. So we're going to have to use the inverse. So first off, to solve for C, that should be a piece of cake. C equals the square root of,
it's 5.
Yeah, 5.83.
and I'm going to get C is,
5.83.
I think it would equal 5.
Is that B?
That's C.
that's a
The
5.
lowercase.
5.
My board is a tad bit dirty. Alright, so we are done with C. Now we're on to A. So looking at angle A, what is the relationship to the side?
3 and 5.
Okay, but what is its relationship?
Opposite over adjacent.
It's
Opposite and
Adjacent.
adjacent. So that would be,
Tangent.
How did you find C quick?
A squared plus B squared.
Pythagorean Theorem.
See, that's I ain't know. I was like, what the hell?
So opposite over
Adjacent.
adjacent. So 5 over 3. What do I do when I'm solving for an angle?
Oh, inverse.
Inverse.
Everybody was real quiet.
Okay, so I need to solve for the, so I take the calculator and I'm going to go to trig inverse 5 divided by, and I get
59.04.
Just 59.
59 because it says, well, 59.0 because it says round to the nearest 10.
Do we have 30 points?
Oh, it's on the
Yes and no. Depending on what kind of test you're taking. If it says round to the nearest 10th, they expect you to put a 0.
Is that degree?
Yeah. Because we were looking for an angle, so therefore it has to be a.
So we know
Get
that.
this problem. The degree. I know, but I don't get it.
Okay. All right, let's try it again. All right, so now we need to find angle B.
Can't you do?
So I either can do what?
180 minus 90 minus 59 minus.
Okay. So I can do angle B can equal 180 minus 90 minus 59. Or I could do what?
You do the sine, or sine cosine. 31?
That's hard.
Yeah, you can do that.
Couldn't I just simply do that also?
Yes.
Because if I'm looking here, what's the relationship to the sides?
Opposite over.
Opposite and adjacent.
Adjacent.
It's my opposite and my adjacent, which is tan. Okay, so either way, I can do either one, and I should get relatively closely the same
31.
answers. So 180 minus 90 minus arrow up. I'm going to grab it, and I get 30.31.
31.
Yeah, 31. All right, or I could have done trig inverse 3 divided by 5, and I would get
31.
okay. Either way, I'm going to get the same answer. Just depends on how you think and how you look at the problem.
So this question was basically for decimal, yeah,
For degrees?
degrees.
Yes. All right, simple one though, just to make sure you're on your What's the area? Area equals what? What's the base and height of this?
3 and 5.
55 times
So what's my area?
0.5 units
squared.
Unit.
squared 3.75.
All right, guys, that is it. If you have questions, ask.